Alright guys, I'm going to walk you through setting up your RSLogix 500 project for emulation. So I'm going to open all three pieces of my software, the RSLogix 500 Pro, it could also be the MicroStarter Lite, the RSLinx Classic, and the RSLogix Emulate 500. I'm going to create a new project. I'm still going to select the MicroLogix 1100 Series B. It really does not matter because we're emulating, so it'll be whatever processor that you specified in the code. Just resize my windows here to where I can actually, work. Notice that in this section I have my data files. I'm going to open up my outputs and I'm going to open up my inputs. Those are going to map to the output and input devices that are connected to the PLC directly. So notice that those, when I click off of them, will go to the back, and that just drives me crazy. So you can use this on top to make those float in front so that you don't lose those. And so you can keep an eye on whatever you're programming and how your data values are changing. You can do that with any of the other data files as well. So just for a basic program, I'm going to just do like a push button and a light. I need to give those addresses, so I'm going to use one of my inputs for my normally open contact or my examine if closed, and I'm going to use one of my outputs for my coil or my OTE, output energize. Verify the file, save it, give it a name, and now I need to configure my drivers. So I'm going to come over to RSLinx Classic. We see we do not have our emulate driver, so we'll go to Communications, Configure Drivers, and I will select my SLC 500 emulator driver. So that'll let me connect to the emulator itself. I see my workstation, but I don't have an actual PLC yet because I have not configured it. So now I'm going to go over to my emulator and I'm going to open my project. I'm going to give this PLC a number on my network, just anything that's not used. So 01, we can, notice the drop down, we can have multiple PLCs running at the same time as long as they have unique numbers. But basically now that's configured and I should be able to just be in my working environment now. So I need to specify to the project where the PLC is located, where I want to download that. That's under comms, system comms. Now that I have that, I should be able to talk to my PLC, so I'm just going to download my code to it. For whatever reason it didn't like that, so I'm going to click Who Active, choose my processor, and it's going to fail. I don't know why it does this. It does it every time when you specify it like that, but just go to it and download it again and it'll work just fine. We need to change our program to run mode. So we see we are in remote program, so there's no power flowing. So even if I change the value of that bit, even though I'm online, it's not going to actually activate in the code. So I have to put it in run mode for it to actually activate in the code. So notice I have those green bars that indicates that I have power running. So now if I change the value of that bit, I'm going to get logical continuity to my coil, so my coil will energize. I can also change that directly from the file, which does tend to be a bit faster, so I do tend to use that a decent amount of time. Notice that if I directly change the value of the output, it's not going to change. One thing to remember about ladder logic is that every rung is evaluated every time. So even a null output is still an output. So it's still going to set that coil to off if there's no logical continuity on that rung. Every time you come back to your code and you go offline, you have to put your data files back. So that's just kind of annoying, but is what it is. So I put those back. And I'm going to show you a little bit about the numbering or the labeling system that you can do. They're not actually program tags. They're called symbol or description. It doesn't really matter too much because they're not tags. So you still have to use the address itself to access these, but those tags or those descriptions will go along with that bit. So if you use it somewhere else in your program, you'll still get that same note will show up. So that can help you just keep track of what things are connected to what inputs and outputs, and basically just help you track your code a little easier. Another thing you can do is to change your instruction type. So basically with Allen Bradley, everything has a 3-letter code. So like here, I changed my XIC, examine if closed, to an XIO, examine if open. And basically that just creates me a normally closed switch. So now if I go online and I go into run mode, I can see that it's going to start with logical continuity. So pay attention to the fact that the green indicates power is flowing. Some PLC environments do this differently, but you can see that the green means power is flowing. So even though that value is a 0, it is still going to be highlighted green because it's a normally closed. So just something to keep in mind. So that pretty much covers all the most important basics. Now you can set up your environment for programming without having a PLC in front of you. How cool.